I just asked Dave to come give us just some of us guys that are still trying to figure it out. Give us a couple pointers on how to make marriage last and make love last. So, Brother Dave, come share with us this morning.
Thank you. Before I get into what I was going to present to you today, I just want to remind all the ladies here, if you saw that clip and you want to put power in your ministry and in your witness, make that conference. But today, I'd like to speak to you about love that endures, as revealed to Ella and me by God. But before I start, let me begin by saying, God has a great sense of humor. My father selected the minister who conducted the ceremony for us. And when it was all over, Ellen and I got a whole new understanding of those words, until death do you part. This gentleman not only was a minister, he was also the county coroner. That ought to tell you something, right? But today, as the pastor said, is a very special day to Ella and I. We've been on this road now for 60-some years. We first started dating, I think, when she was 13 and I was 15. We were just kids. In fact, when we got married, we were just kids. Very frankly, as a 16-year-old female and an 18-year-old male, we didn't have a clue how to build a godly marriage. But God's merciful. Neither of us had come from a family that would set the type of example of what God has in mind for a marriage. So God had to reveal that to us slowly but surely. If we were to have a godly marriage, I guess the question is, what is a godly marriage? That was something that God took us on a long walk to find out. If we look at marriage, we have to understand love is the key to marriage. God says it is the single most important thing in a marriage. If that's true, what is love? Well, there's a verse in the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13:4 and 13. And I'll read that to you. I don't want to miss anything. It says, love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful, arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing. It rejoices in truth. It bears all things, believes all things. Love never ends. But now faith, hope, the greatest of these. That's God's definition, not mine. But now we have this wonderful scripture revelation, but did that change us instantly? No. Sometimes it takes a little bit of experience, and God gave us those wonderful experiences. Put it to you very simply, it was one experience at a time, over many, many years. And he allowed us to make the changes as we were ready to make the changes. That, from my perspective, the greatest thing that we did was to put ourselves in his hand, totally trusting that he would do for us what we needed. He did give us some insights as to what makes a marriage sound, and I'll share the ones that I think were the most important in our relationship. First, he told us that you can never, never stop working on yourself or your relationship. Secondly, he said you must declare before him that you will never allow yourself to be offended by your partner. All issues will be lifted up to God. Thirdly, love springs from an intentional attitude, an attitude that translates into behaviors, which in turn enriches and brings joy to that relationship. Fourth, godly love releases every spouse to become all that God intended. He also opened the door to serve one another. And that's a simple serving. Let me give an example. If we are sitting watching television, one of us wants to go get a snack or a drink, we turn to the other and say, would you like something? It's just that simple. Common courtesy. And God also made clear that happiness is just a feeling of the moment. But joy is a heart condition that is eternal. So what I would say to you today, let the joy of the Lord be your strength in your relationship. Finally, God opened my eyes. It's really hard for me to grab hold of, being the typical male, by the way. Every partner must share their total self with one another. When you stop to think about it, God declared and decreed that we, when married, are one. That's what God said. So that means that you need to share more than just your material possessions. That means you need to share every thought, every dream, and all the joy, suffering, pain, hopes, fears, successes, and even your failures. So as I approach Valentine's Day, I remind myself of the truths that God has revealed to us. And I hope that what we have learned that you can put to use in your life, and you will share that. And before I leave the platform today, I'd like to introduce my best half, Ella. And let me just say, if you haven't met Ella yet, go out of your way to do so. She is the most compassionate, caring, wonderful person. I love her.
That's the kind of wisdom that we need to learn from. It's one thing to read a book or hear somebody talk about what they think. It's another thing for somebody who's lived it out. So this is how it works. So I hope that you took heed to those words today. And if your marriage is everything you want it to be, then follow along and keep that going. And if your marriage is falling apart this morning, why don't you try what Dave suggested? Because I do know one thing, and I hate to let the cat out of the bag, but maybe Dave didn't say it, maybe Ella wouldn't admit it, but it hasn't always been as good as it is today. Over 60 years, there have been mountains and there have been valleys. But the way you stay together is you just keep doing the right things, even in difficult seasons. And I encourage you today to take heed to that. Matthew chapter number 22, verse number 37 is where we're going to take our text this morning.